the analyst for Freshly Pressed wants live. Okay, Mr. C wants. Yeah, no, serious. Tell them.
See, you have a lot of what's the word? A lot of grace, and they'll give you a lot of things, but they won't give you music.
Take a bet.
How
Take a
much?
bet. No money. I just want to prove a point.
Well, what's the point? I don't bet on money. How
No,
much?
it will be too easy to take your money. Okay, you know what?
How much?
How much you want? How much are you
One
thinking
M.
of it? 1M.
One M.
Victor, she wants to go 1M.
Okay,
And
that the
your
music
money,
won't work, right?
That the analyst requesting. Well, wait, what is it that you want me to tell them again?
that when I'm coming in, on the days I'm coming in, play songs like She Means Woman.
You have that 1 million naira, abi?
Do you have it?
Yes. You
We'll
have
give
it.
it to Victor.
You'll be escrow.
It will not work, bro.
No, I'm looking for money. Let's bet.
It will not work.
It wouldn't.
Okay.
I am Hope, and this is Smooth Breakfast.
It will not work.
The Smooth Breakfast presents the headlines, the stories, the news, in-depth analysis of national current affairs.
Yeah.
Freshly pressed.
I just
Some of the songs, we played some songs that
this thing or what?
and
What is it
they
called?
called us
Like,
up on those songs. It will shock you. Singing is risky.
You first. First bang. You first bang.
and we're here to bring you all the big stories this Friday morning. It's time for Freshly Pressed 981 on Smooth 98.1
Yes, it is right here on Smooth Breakfast with Victor Pepple
and Shakber Martins.
and Monsieur C, where you can find him on social media, but in real life he's Mr. C, and he'll be joining us for the next half hour. Hello, Mr. C, how you doing?
Hello, Shopper. Hello, Victor. Lagos. Good morning. Welcome to the weekend.
Yes, he's in that Friday feeling, that Friday mood. The
That's
music
right.
helped. All right, and we've got you too. We already have you streaming live on youtube.com/smooth981FM Lagos. You can join the live stream and then you can comment on that live stream and let us know your thoughts and we'll read them out during the show. You can also send WhatsApp messages in to 0809 and use the hashtag FreshlyPress981. We are on Twitter currently, just waiting for your messages to come on through.
All right, so we'll begin with Premium Times this morning. EFCC begins probe of APC PDP officials for money laundering. Now, the EFCC is investigating the All Progressives Congress APC and Opposition People's Democratic Party PDP for suspected money laundering through accounts in two banks in Abuja. That's according to a report from the Premium Times. Mr. C, the major political parties in Nigeria involved or perhaps investigated for money laundering. Can you help us make sense of this?
Okay, Victor. So, as you rightly said, the EFCC is investigating the two major political parties on suspicions of money laundering. Now, when I read this story, the first thing that came to my mind is, why is this in the public domain? When will our investigative agencies learn to conduct investigations privately and discreetly? As you've announced these investigations, if truly there's any money laundering going on, do you not think for a second it will come to an end and records will vanish? Now, we saw how suspected fraudsters were investigated discreetly by the United States. Obi-Wan Invictus was investigated. He didn't know he was under investigation until he was picked up. The same thing with the other self-acclaimed Instagram sensation, who was also picked up in Dubai. He didn't know also he was under investigation. But here, the reverse is the case. They first announced the investigation. And then guess what? 9 out of 10 times, when the case proceeds to court, if it does get there, they can't secure a conviction. Now, beyond all of this, there have been worrying concerns about the rate at which aspirants are coming out for political office, especially the office of president, given the situation in which Nigeria is. Very few reasonable people would be expected to declare the intention to run for the office of president. However, this has not been the case. So in the APC over 30 aspirants for the office of president. That at 100 million naira per aspirant, that's 3 billion naira. Now we must take this into context. The Electoral Act was amended, and the maximum contribution any single individual or entity can make is 50 million naira. Now, the campaign, the total amount of money that officially can be raised for a presidential campaign is 5 billion. Now, it would appear that this rush of aspirants for that office is a walk around the legal provisions. Because strictly speaking, they would tell you this 3 billion naira that has been raised is not a donation. They paid for forms. But do not be surprised that some of these aspirants will step down. In fact, some of these aspirants have bought forms for other offices quietly because they know really and truly they're not going to run for the office of president. So good luck to the EFCC with this public declaration of an investigation. I do not know or expect what they intend to find out.
When we see news such as, coming in from The Guardian, where they say that, okay, put together looking at gubernatorial forums, senator forums, presidential forums, that APC and PDP stand to garner about 43.9 billion naira from the sale of these forms. There will be an outcry. Sometimes that outcry, it needs to be addressed, don't you think?
Okay, so the people making the outcry, are they members of the political parties? Do they know how these monies are spent or should be spent? So there are a number of issues. If we were all members of the political parties, if we played a more active role, we'll then be in a position internally to ask the relevant questions. So a party is expecting for about 100 million, right? You're not a member of the party. You don't understand how the party works. Yet you say, what's the money for?
Okay, if you say so. And this day news now, Emefiele, AGF and INEC honored court summons as PDP and others join suits. A new twist coming in on Thursday as the People's Democratic Party and two others joined in the suit by the governor of Central Bank of Nigeria, Godwin Emefiele, seeking the court's determination of his right to participate in the 2023 presidential election. Now, of course, everybody has their opinion about this, including different parties and whatnot. But looking at the response of Emefiele, who seems to be enjoying himself so much that he's like, well, if people want to have a heart attack, let them have a heart attack. As for me, I'm just gonna have fun and do what I can until the president expressly tells me to resign. But some might say, didn't that already happen? Your thoughts?
Okay, thank you, Shopper. So, quick background or quick recap for listeners who haven't been following the story. There were rumors that central bank governor was interested in running for the office of president. Then a group of faceless individuals known as Farmers for Association of Nigeria, Friends of Emefiele and the like, supposedly put together the sum of 100 million naira. Now that is a big red flag in itself because guess what? You cannot pay for that form in cash. So whether it was a bank transfer or an instrument like a check or a bank draft, there is a single name on it. And given the Electoral Act provision which says it's only 50 million, 50 million is a maximum, I would love to see how they walked around that. And this is food for thought for the investigative agencies. Now, beyond that, he has consistently denied wanting to run. But this case in court gives the light to all of that. If you have no intention of running, why are you seeking constitutional interpretation? Now, this suit was instituted on Monday. On Wednesday, the president then issued a directive following the Court of Appeal ruling that nullified the decision of Federal High Court Umuahia, striking down Section 84, subsection 12 of the Electoral Act. Now, after the president's directive, a circular was issued from the office of the secretary to the federal government.
And can I quote now? For the avoidance of doubts, this directive affects all ministers, heads, and members of extra-ministerial departments, agencies, and parastatals of government, ambassadors, as well as other political appointees who desire to contest for elective offices.
Correct, Chopper. And that circular was addressed to the CBN. Now, it's instructive what this case is going to achieve, because on Section 11, subsection 2F of the Central Bank Act says the president can remove the governor, provided he gets 2/3 majority in the Senate. Now, what we have seen in the last 4 years is this particular Senate always, always gives the president what he wants. Always. So, Emefiele can push his case all he wants. If the president,
sorry, Mr. C, are we talking about removal of the CBN governor here?
correct.
Wouldn't it be honorable for the CBN governor to step aside if he wants to pursue his presidential ambition? That's number one. Number two, the president saw him fit for a second term as the CBN governor. It's never happened before in the history of Nigeria. He has a 5-year term first, and the president put him again, same with the INEC chairman. 5 years in office, the president said, oh, you're fit, you should do it twice. These are the two people in Nigeria's history that have been there twice. So if the president is saying again, the same person who appointed you for a second tenure in office is saying, if you have presidential ambitions, step aside. Is it not an honorable thing to do? Just quietly step aside rather than contest it and keep seeking interpretations and waiting for the Senate to have the 2/3 majority before he leaves?
Okay, so Victor, you speak nicely to the ideal. However, in Nigeria and our recent experience, the ideal is far from our reality. It doesn't always meet our reality. Yes, in ideal situations, in ideal climes, in serious countries, he would have resigned. But this is Nigeria. He's not going to resign unless he's literally forced out of that office.
And may I just quote from the CBN government, because we also have to remember that as of now, no news is good news. He says there is no news now, but there will be news. You heard me. I said there is no news, but there will be news.
So let me just quickly clarify this for listeners, very quick, 30 seconds. Emefiele, as a Nigerian, has the right to contest for presidential office.
Right.
However, as the governor of the central bank, that right is limited, it's restricted. While serving as the governor of the bank, he cannot pursue partisan politics. And in fact, he breaches a provision of the public Code of Conduct for Public Officers, which says that you cannot be a member of a political party while serving as a public officer.
All right, let's get over to the next story quickly. From the Punch newspaper, INEC may relocate sensitive materials from the CBN, says Professor Yakubu. That's the chairman of INEC. Now, he said this during a consultative meeting with the media in Abuja yesterday. He said the commission would employ both manual and electronic methods in the transmission of the 2023 elections result, and the commission, there is a possibility of moving sensitive materials from the Central Bank of Nigeria to another location.
Okay, so very quickly, Victor, the first question that comes to mind when I read the story was, in the first place, why are documents being kept in the CBN? Is the CBN a storage vault for documents? The CBN is supposed to be responsible for monetary and fiscal policies and also for the storage of cash and maybe gold. Why isn't INEC able to keep its own documents? That's the first thing. Now, two, the INEC chairman is still saying may.
They have not fireproofed their offices yet.
It's not like the CBN is fireproof.
Yes, but there are rather a lot of fires.
No, so the thing is, we've allowed certain acts to continue. There have been no consequences. The perpetrators have never been brought to book. Now, INEC should seriously consider long-term venues for keeping the election materials. And now that the CBN governor has indicated clearly his intention or his desire to run by means of his suit, under no circumstance should the election materials be kept in any CBN vault. Rather, we can keep them in any of the security agencies, keep it with them, and on the day of the elections, roll them out.
Let's take it over to your messages now. And Ken says, please don't mind the EFCC. If this particular investigation is ongoing, EFCC would be too busy for this public announcement. Whilst Jim says, well, they are looking for their own share of the farm's money. That's what you say.
Well, Yinka Bolu, that's why we keep saying that the police needs training and retraining. You declare you're coming to investigate and you expect me to wait for you to come? Anyways, that's a message that Yinka sent in.
And Neracello from Ogudu says the EFCC always play to the gallery. They want the citizens to think that they are working.
We have this one in from Kevin. He says, is EFCC still a functional investigative body or they're now a political body? Well, you tell me. They seem to be playing politics with their so-called investigations. So I see this declaration as a means to shut the people up, not as a move to find out the truth. The masses may not have the necessary documents to hold these political criminals down. Nevertheless, we know the truth.
And Yinka from VI says one question regarding Emefiele's resignation. Should he eventually win the presidential election, is this how he will continue to break the rules? One more question. How can you be both player and referee? Questions, questions, questions.
Well, your guess is as good as mine, Yinka from VI.
All right, and we move it on now to more news. This time we are going over to the Punch. Actually, sir, we're going over to the Guardian, and the headline reads: Ayade sacks monarch for attending PDP meeting. This is the Cross River State Governor Ben Ayade, who's ordered the immediate withdrawal of certificates of recognition from the paramount ruler of Calabar South Council, Professor Itam Hogam Itam, for dabbling in partisan politics. And he said, well, if that's what you're looking to do, then I release you. Go, be free to engage with your partisan politics. But some might question this move right now, considering the fact that we have seen, although we look to our traditional rulers for more of cultural significance, we have seen them engaged in politics, and we have seen political players also coming to them for recognition and acceptance. So why now at this point? Some might ask it, and they might also ask, is this because of all the cross carpeting that's been going on? Your thoughts, Mrs. C?
Okay, thank you, Shopper. So first of all, it must be stated quite clearly that traditional rulers are supposed to be our fathers. And if you're going to play the role of a father, then you cannot have any obvious favorites. So strictly speaking, this deposed paramount monarch should never have physically been in that meeting. We must remember that monarchs, traditional rulers, are human beings. You can have your secret sympathies for any political party, but you cannot afford to make it obvious by reason of the office you occupy. Now, I don't know what was so important that this monarch felt it necessary to attend the meeting in person. He could have sent a representative who would still brief him on what transpired at the meeting, except, of course, money was being shared and he had to be there physically. That's the only reason I can think of that would compel him to attend physically, because he left the throne. Now, in most cultures in Nigeria, once you get onto the throne, you're not supposed to leave it for just any reason. Two, would Ayade have taken this step if he attended an APC meeting? Remember, Ayade has left the
That is the
PDP
question.
to the APC. So that is another question to be answered. Now, you spoke to recognition. Where the traditional rulers are revered and respected by the people, you will notice that the politicians do their best to also get recognized by them. And when it's time for an election, they want to get royal blessings. Case in point, Edo State. Whenever there's an election for the office of governor, all the candidates like to troop there, and literally it's who gets there first and is blessed. Every other person doesn't get an acknowledgement because they say the Oba does not bless twice.
Okay.
So it's a reminder to the other monarchs around the country. You cannot be too obvious with your political preferences. You have to keep them close to your chest. Inward, you're a human being. You have your sympathies, you have your leanings, but outwardly, you should be seen to be fair and above board.
But Mr. C, ideally, do we have governors sack traditional or paramount rulers?
Yeah, so under the state laws, the monarchs get this instrument of office, staff of office, from the governor. So kingmakers select, the monarch elect, and the governor appoints by virtue of the customary chieftaincy and customary law of the state. That's why when it's time to depose a monarch, it is the governor who deposes, not the president, because they're all state laws.
Well,
So, in the vein of what can be given can also be taken away.
Correct.
A lot of questions around that. Some would want to say, oh, maybe because of how elections are in Nigeria, traditional rulers wield enormous power over their community. Now, seeing that this particular traditional ruler has been said to be affiliated much with the opposition in that state now, being the PDP, the governor on the other side, being an APC member now, is feeling like, oh, maybe he might want to work for the PDP. But let's move on to this story from the This Day newspaper. Buhari appeals to ASU, others to call off strike, but the university workers reject plea. Yesterday, the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari, with members of the Academic Staff Union of Universities and other industrial unions in government-owned universities, had a meeting, and the president pleaded with the unions to call off the present strike. And in reaction, the university lecturers and non-teaching staff turned down the appeal by the federal government to go back to their post while negotiations on their grievances continue. When I saw this, Mr. C,
Yes, sir.
simply put, President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, as this article captures it, pleads that you should go back to school. They said that we're not going back until you pay us.
Okay, so Victor, let me put this very clearly. Imagine having a driver, right? You negotiate the sum of, say, 40K or 50K to be paid every month. You owe him for 10 months, and then he tells you in the 11th month that, Oga, I can't do this anymore. That I need you to pay me the outstanding money you owe me, right? And he says, because of that, I don't have any money and I can't take care of myself. You then appeal to him, resume work first, then I will start thinking of how to pay you. That is literally what Buhari has just done. They have a list of demands. You haven't met any, right? And then you say they should come back and think of the students.
So Mr. C, the thing is, private universities are still having classes.
Correct.
But students in the public universities, federal and state universities across Nigeria, have been at home for 3 months this year. Consider the 9 months they were at home in 2020. The president is pleading.
No.
According to this,
No,
he was
Victor,
begging.
Victor, I'm sorry, I don't buy that. And I'll tell you why. How much is ASU looking for? About 200 billion. If this government was serious, you don't need to get 200 billion at once. How about bringing 100 now and say, okay, here's 100, right? I can't give you the outstanding 100 now, but we should be in a position to give it to you within the next 3 or 4 months. If you did that, do you not think for a second ASU will return to the classrooms? You want them to come back. You're not even giving them timelines. Okay, by this month or that month, I expect to have this much of the outstanding money so that I can pay to you. Now we are running a subsidy program that will literally exceed 3 trillion naira this year alone. We have a bridging allowance, which is at least 20, 30, or 40% of that sum. Yet the price of petrol across Nigeria is not uniform. What do we place our priorities in?
Let's just take it to the messages now, and we'll start off with WhatsApp. Do remember you can use the hashtag FreshlyPress981 or just tag us at Smooth981FM up on Twitter. So, Danny K says, Mr. C, if you want them to keep INEC materials with security agencies who are also being used by politicians, then CBN is the safest place, and the CBN governor should resign. I agree. INEC needs to be responsible too. Whilst Dan says, I'm highly disappointed in the CBN governor. He should have resigned by now.
This one in from EK Peter says, I disagree with Mr. C respectfully. The CBN is the government's bank, and just like the conventional banks, can house government assets and valuables, including INEC documents.
I'm sorry.
We move on to more messages. Abimbola says, I'm so disappointed in the president for this I don't care attitude. It's one of the reasons regarding ASU, actually, that's one of the reasons why I voted for him. And I even put my son in the University of Lagos because I thought that he was too much of a fatherly and compassionate figure to allow any strike to linger for long. But I have been proven wrong. And he ends by saying he really fold my hands. And going over to youtube.com/smooth981FM Lagos, Stanley Ejibo says the investigation of the two major political parties in the country by EFCC is a scam. Oh, okay. Why so, Stanley? Why so? He says someone needs to investigate them for this media stunt. Whilst Biola Olaniyan says Joseph Sanusi also served 2 terms as CBN governor in the 90s, however, with mere confirmation that he's been a member of APC since February last year, automatically means that the president should relieve him of his duty. Okay. We've got more, but let's take it back to the stories, I think,
All right,
because we don't
all
have
right,
too
yes.
much time. All right, so let's take a look at this one. In countries, inadequate database threatens SIM NIN registration. NIMC admits deficit. Yes, the Nigeria Identity Management Commission disclosed that its infrastructure can accommodate only 100 million Nigerians and that it is currently at 80% of its capacity with over 80 million unique NINs issued. That's Mr. C. I'm just gonna ask you for your thoughts.
Oh, this is hilarious, Chopin. I was discussing this particular story with a friend this morning, and I'm like, why do we always show ourselves up as incompetent, unprepared, and not forward thinking? Right? By the time NIMC was properly established, the population of Nigeria was at least 150, 180 million. Easy. How did you start up with a database that could only cater to 100 million people? How?
Now, consider the fact that as of January 2021, we're now in 2022, by the way, but as of January 2021, that we had registered approximately 187.9 million mobile.
I was coming to that. Yeah, so even if you factor in the fact that some Nigerians have multiple lines, we'll probably look at 130, 140. And did they factor in the annual population increase that at certain points each year, a group of Nigerians will cross into the threshold where they can buy, they have the means and the abilities to buy phones, to get phone lines. Now they're saying they will upgrade to 250. Excuse me. 250 million doesn't even cut it. Now you have this policy, this security policy of linking your NIN to your SIM. Now, clearly, the NIMC cannot adequately register everyone. So, in the light of that, why will you punish innocent Nigerians because NIMC wasn't forward-thinking, wasn't proactive? And at the end of this charade, this circus, no headroom, no lesson will be learned. It's just, it is just shocking.
Really shocking. But quickly, let's just squeeze this message in. It's from Bamidele. It says the governor of Edo State cannot appoint the Oba of Benin. Oshomele had to withdraw his letter of appointment due to this mistake. He goes on, he says, ASI is not looking for 200 billion naira. Please read the 2009 agreement that's at stake. No government can implement that agreement. Subsidies for everyone. University education for a privileged few.
Okay, so very quickly, Bamidele, the governor of Edo State.
We have to go now. A lot of messages coming in, a lot of reactions to the conversation. Quite, interesting conversations we're having here on Freshly Pressed every weekday
They
morning.
keep coming in. Unfortunately, we can't take no more of them. But thank you so much for always being with us, listening, and
Sorry,
sharing
one of them
your
I can
thoughts.
just quickly throw in. Tajudin is asking you to run for president. That's about it. It can't miss to see you on Twitter, Monsieur C with a triple E. I'm Victor Pep.
And I'm Shepard Martins.
Good morning.
Morning.
First